What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Golf on Tap. Today we'll be talking final bets for the People's Open. Waste Management Phoenix Open has rolled around. The start of the golf season really feels like it's getting going once you hit Waste Management, once you get Torrey Pines, Pebble Beach. This is when the juice really starts to pick up. So excited to dive through it with my man, Joey Ricotta. Make sure to give him a follow on X at Joey Knows Nothing. As always, I'm Jack Bushman. You can check me out at Jack Bushman too. Make sure to show some support to the show's page at On Tap Golf and follow On Tap Golf wherever you listen to your podcast. That way you can check out all the latest episodes, even if you're not able to catch up with us live. Joey, my man, as we were talking about before jumping on the pod, you had a pretty good sweat going into Sunday. Lucas the Glover right there, as well as Shane Lowry. Unfortunately, Rory McIlroy, Mr. Tony Marchese's man, picks up his first W at Pebble Beach. Felt like he had a really good card, though, man. I was pretty impressed with the long shots that you put together, and some of the guys even that we mentioned on the show. Justin Rose, I know neither of us ended up getting to, but that was a guy we shouted out as well. So even though it didn't come away with the ticket that we wanted last week at Pebble Beach, still got some pretty good vibes going into the People's Open this week. How we doing, Joey?
Good, man. Yeah, always good to be on here. I felt good. I felt really good this past week. And, you know, Pebble Beach has been pretty good to me for the most part, obviously with Wyndham. And, you know, I felt like I had a pretty good read on it as we both, like, you know, we shouted out, of course, Rose, and we talked through some things. And I didn't, even based off the guys that I did put together on my card, there wasn't a lot of, you weren't disagreeing with a lot of the guys for the reasons that I had. So it made me feel even that much more confident going into it. And it turns out, I mean, Rory just went nuts, and it's going to happen, you know, like the stat that I forget what the exact number was, but I think it was like since 2015, I want to say between 17 and 19 under, I think was where the winner was winding up. Rory went past that. So, I mean, like where Shane Lowry finished, who was one of my outright tickets along with the glove. I mean, on a normal year, you would say that's a really damn good pick, Joey. Yeah. But like, I just, you know, it is what it is. I mean, Rory came to play. He's on his A game right now. He seems locked in. And I mean, we didn't really foresee that happening. Of course, Tony did. And that's, you know, that's his guy too. So it's a good thing whenever Rory's winning for him. It sucks because I really wanted to start out before the Super Bowl with a little bit of extra cash, because then you got the cash going into the betting for all the Super Bowl novelty props with the Gatorade dumps and the coin tosses, which is ridiculous. Bet with a friend. Don't lay that minus 103, minus 105 juice or whatever.
What's funny is I've seen some sports books are that they've caught on. They're offering. There's been some sports books out there offering plus 100s out there. It's like the jig is up. They've realized that you shouldn't be paying a stupid vig for a coin toss, which is the dumbest thing in the world.
It is dumb. And you know what? Now that we say that, I mean, like I say that every year because I get irritated about that. And not to sidetrack, this is a golf show, but like it's a huge week, right? The Waste Management Super Bowl right after you figure out who the winner is of the Waste Management, like that concludes and right into the Super Bowl. Like this is an awesome week. So definitely got to talk about it a little bit. But like now that I say that, when it comes to, it's a 50-50 proposition when you're talking about a coin toss. I mean, it's a 50-50 bet whenever you're betting basically a money line or even a spread bet, because they set the spreads at like 50-50 and they're still taking the vig of the minus 110. So you know what? The sport books are going to rip us off basically no matter what. Yeah. And they're just going to find a new angle. But it is nice to see that at least with this, it's like there's so many people finally talking about the coin toss.
Right.
That they're like, okay, yeah, well, let's just do plus 100. We'll give them a little shot here on this one.
Finally, something's being done about it.
Yeah, you know, so I wish they would start doing that with all the spread bets when you're betting like basketball and whatever. But
I don't see that one happening.
It's not happening. And Scotty Scheffler's odds are never going to be where they probably should be either. But neither here nor there, Jack. I'm excited, and at the end of the show, I think we kind of talked about it last week, but I do have a little mini parlay here that I'm gonna throw out there. I had to do a quick little. I haven't totally dove into the Super Bowl quite yet, and so probably missing some of those good over prop bets that you look for early in the week.
Yeah.
I did get a good one on Dallas Goedert, like immediately when the books kind of released that. That's up to like now 50.5 receiving yards. So it's not as good as where I got it, but and that's not the parlay that I'm running out there. But yeah, man, this is just a fun. I'm always looking forward to this. We got the 16th hole at Waste Management. Like there's gonna be so much going on this week, dude. This is fun.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite weeks of the entire season. I'm super excited. And I know you said this is a golf betting show, but with it being Super Bowl week, these two events kind of being right on top of each other, as you referenced, the finish to the Waste Management Phoenix Open on Sunday usually wraps up right before the kickoff to the Super Bowl. So these things kind of go hand in hand. We'll definitely be talking through some fun bets at the end of the show involving the Super Bowl, and excited to hear what you have to what you're going to be sharing for your parlay. And yeah, if anyone's tuning in out there and got some Super Bowl picks parlayed with some golf top 40s or top 20s or top continental European or whatever it may be, make sure to go and drop those wonky bets down in the comment section as well. Jump on over to YouTube so you can hit us up in the comment section. Let us know who you're going to be tailing this week, who you're going to be fading at this week's Waste Management Phoenix Open, who you're going to be liking for the Super Bowl. Drop it down in the comment section below. But before we move gears into the People's Open this week, Joey, do want to talk for a second about Rory and his dominant performance, because I really do think this is a sign of hopefully big things to come for Rory McIlroy. I mean, I haven't bet him in major championships in a long time. I think it's been since the 2023 Masters, and I kind of learned my lesson the hard way through some tough rides there, particularly the Open Championship at St. Andrews, where your boy Cam Smith chased down Rory McIlroy and absolutely broke my heart on that Sunday.
Sorry again.
I do. It's all right, man. It happens. The one I'm really mad about is you tailing Cam Young first round leader at St. Andrews and not texting me that you put a wager down on it. So you came away with double money, Cam Young and Cam Smith, and I got straight bent over and shown the 50 states. So that's what I'm really mad at you for.
In my defense, I was probably working the worst job that anyone could ever have at the time. So like, I feel like I deserved that at that point in my life.
It's came and it's
but I'm sorry.
I've gotten over it. Don't worry. I've had a bunch of worse beats since then. So Rory's it's kind of came and went. But I do think this is a really big sign, a good sign of things to come for Rory McIlroy heading into what's obviously a very pivotal year in his career, right? And there's always going to be the Masters talk. You got the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, of course, that he's dominated. I think Oakmont for the U.S. Open sets up really well for him because you need to drive the ball long and straight there. So, like, I feel like these are some real good of opportunities for Rory McIlroy to nab a major championship as he's going to get at this stage of his career. And for him to go off at Pebble Beach the way that he did, as you referenced, getting into the 20s, something we haven't seen in a long time there. And it's not like a bunch of other people were there and it turned into a birdie fest and technology overran the tournament or everything. It was a phenomenal tournament, and I loved the conditions on Saturday, testing the guys. Like, it makes me really happy to see a course like Pebble Beach hold up against modern technology, because I thought it produced a phenomenal tournament. But yeah, just when Rory goes on those types of runs and he's driving the ball the way that he does and has the wedges at least semi-dialed, he's going to be very tough to beat. But I think it bodes well for Rory McIlroy at a course that he hasn't had a lot of success at, as we broke down on last week's show. Kind of the reasoning, I think, neither of us really paid all that much attention to him, Joey. I mentioned the stat. I think it was each of the last 17 winners had previously had a top 20 at Pebble Beach. Rory has never finished inside the top 20 and had a really bad performance there last year. So I don't think either of us were looking there, even though we both know he has the ability to go and win that golf tournament. But I definitely think bodes well for Rory moving forward, and really curious to see how he's going to kind of go about things leading up to the Masters from here. But I do want to bring up what I thought was funny watching Rory McIlroy win that golf tournament. I know you probably don't feel the same way because you had two guys in the hunt. Pebble Beach, sadly, was my worst card of the season. I had no one in the mix whatsoever. And in a second, we'll talk about Jason Day's most egregious outfit yet. It was the worst outfit I've ever seen on Sunday. But it's funny, the vibes that I have watching Rory.
He looked pretty comfy, though.
He looked fucking terrible. He did look comfy, but I literally was rooting against him, and he was the only like guy I had any hopes of on Sunday. I'm like, Jason Day is not going to perform well in this outfit today. I promise you. He's not shooting 63 in that shit.
That wasn't a beach attire either.
It was terrible, but I'm curious if you felt the same way. I would understand if you didn't, because again, you had guys in the sweat who wound up getting beat by Rory McIlroy to prevent you from cashing a ticket. But watching Rory go and dominate to win a golf tournament in comparison to watching Scotty going and dominating to win a golf tournament, when Rory wins it, I'm like, oh, good for you, Rory. I have no one in the mix. I'm like kind of happy to see Rory playing well, even though I was rooting for your guys too, especially my boy, the Glove. But whenever Scotty Scheffler has those type of performances, I'm like, oh, fuck this guy. I'm so sick of this. But when it happens to Rory, I'm like, oh, this is cool. I like it.
It's definitely the same feeling, even though I had guys, like you said, I had guys in the mix, so I'm actively rooting against him. I'm much more okay with and happy that it's Rory winning than it is Scotty. Like, yeah. Scotty is the most boring great golfer.
I think that's what it is. He's just
of
boring.
all time, maybe.
You just don't get anything there.
You don't get any emotion. He's just like the stoic. And you know what? There's something to be said about that too, though, right? Like, remember when we got off the show last week, we started talking about wrestling a little bit, and we started talking about the Royal Rumble and like
we did.
Jey Uso's entrance and all this stuff. You look at Roman Reigns. This is just a comparison right now.
I love it. I love where this is going. We need more of this on the show.
You look at Roman Reigns, right? If you're a wrestling guy, and he's just it's just the aura, right? He comes out, just puts his ones up in the air. Put your ones up, the tribal chief. Like, he doesn't have to say much. He's Roman Reigns. He's the tribal chief. He's like one of the GOATs, if not like the modern GOAT right now. Like, outside of, John Cena who's retiring this year. But like, that's what it feels like with Scotty Scheffler. He doesn't need to say much. He doesn't need to do much. He just goes out there and whoops your ass.
And that definitely aids in him being so good. Is like, he's just always dialed. He's always in his own lane. He's not a fiery guy. He's not someone who shows a lot of emotion unless it's like a clutch putt to win the tournament. That's the only time you'll really get a fist pump out of Scotty. But I think that's why he is so good, because he's just so dialed in and stays in his own lane and doesn't worry about any outside noise. As unfun as it is, it's probably what makes him great.
Well, yeah, there's something to be said about like being able to be that locked in all the time and to be that, almost nonchalant about it. Yeah. Like, I think that is, you're spot on. That's what allows him to be as great as it is. And I mean, I don't mean to turn this into a Scheffler thing. I just think that it's been far too long where we are actively rooting against somebody because they are so good. It's almost like the Kansas City Chiefs type thing where we're coming up this week, where I think everybody who's not a Chiefs fan and might not have money on the Chiefs, if they just, want to make a bunch of money and they just feel like, oh, it's a gimme, I'm going to go with the Chiefs because why not? Same goes for Scotty and those people who don't even make more than one bet a week and they just bet Scotty outright in every tournament. Like, that's the kind of feeling. It's like, at some point we need to see this guy lose and then build his stock back up, at least in the fans' eyes, because once he loses for a while consistently enough, that the other side is coming, where it is kind of like with Rory right now. We're all like, let's get a major, Rory. Let's get a major. Let's get a major. Scotty will be in that kind of same bucket if he loses for long enough. And then people are like, man, I miss Scotty Scheffler. Like, I want to miss you, Scotty Scheffler. Go away.
Yeah, I know. Get some bigger odds so I can actually bet on you. I can't bet on you at plus 290 to beat 131 other guys over 4 days at a golf tournament. We'll get to the waste management in just a second. Last thing I want to say about Pebble, though, I thought it was an excellent tournament, man. Like, I love when conditions are one of the only ways you can actually challenge professional golfers nowadays, especially on a short course like that. Like, had the wind and weather not picked up, we probably would have seen like minus 25, minus 26 probably win this thing. But when you play 4 days right on the ocean, odds are one of those days you're going to get chaotic weather. And we got it on Saturday, got some decent conditions on Sunday as well. But I just thought it was a really good tournament. And we've seen many like shorter golf courses. I was looking actually, Joey, just in some research. Maybe it doesn't even correlate to the waste management at all, but I was just looking at the Travelers Championship. And dude, over the last 4 years, I think it was in 2021, Harris English and Kramer Hickok were in a playoff at minus 13. And last year, I think Tom Kim and Scotty Scheffler went in a playoff at minus 22. And I know it's like a signature event. Now the best players in the world are playing that golf course, but technology is absolutely overrun TPC Cromwell, I believe, or what is TPC River Highlands, excuse me, in Cromwell, Connecticut. TPC River Highlands has just been dominated by modern technology. I'm happy to see that hasn't happened at Pebble Beach. It's one of the premier golf courses in the United States on the PGA Tour, and to see it still be able to hold up, I was really happy about and get a decently challenging winning score.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we always root for the lowest scores as possible. Like,
Yeah,
let's get to, the under double digits really is like where the sweet spot for our viewership or our like fandom, I guess, would be. But like, this is still, like you said, it could have been, minus 26, minus 27. We could have seen some really, really high numbers, and we weren't seeing that because, you're right off the ocean and actually got a little bit of weather there. So, and it was as beautiful as always, like you're getting the scenes, you're getting the golf, you're getting just about everything, even though it's a short course. And I think that's what makes it so fun, because it's not predictable in that way. Like, you can look at Pebble Beach and one day it can play pretty easy and one day it's just not. And so you don't know what to expect. And I think that's the beautiful part about that course is, there's a lot of courses where weather just doesn't matter as much. And the fact that it does, especially for a guy like, Rory, he made it look pretty easy mostly, but there were, and you could get a bunch of different golfers that were contending. Dude,
it was that's like what I was just about to say. Like, Lowry
types.
And Rory are like two completely different golfers.
Different types of golfers. I think that's cool too. We look at like the Waste Management. I think we're probably, and it sounds like we're on the same lines or thought process here as what type of golfers we're looking for. I don't see like too much unpredictability from this course and this weekend. The only unpredictability part will be like the fans and like the atmosphere and things like that. You have no idea what to expect when it comes to that, which makes it a different type of cool. But yeah, Pebble Beach is always fun, man. I had really a blast watching Saturday, Sunday. Those are the two main days I got to tune in. And but I was keeping up with some of your tweets and stuff, and did not enjoy the random cutting. That was something that and you called out, and I just don't understand. I hate, and we have to talk about it again, where they do those random switches from the Golf Channel, back to local TV. It's like, stop.
And we got 20 minutes of Illinois, Ohio State because there was technical fouls at the end, and it was just like an absolute mess. I'm like, are you kidding me? And we missed Rory Birdie at 7. I'm like, this is what you get, PGA Tour, for getting yourself in this absolute contractual nightmare. Because I think, so obviously the easy solution would be for them to just continue playing it on the Golf Channel. Like, you have the Golf Channel for a reason. I don't know what just happened. I hope we stay in there. We have a Golf Channel for a reason. Like, play the golf on there. That would be the easy solution. But I think it's woven into their contracts that with CBS, that once it hits the CBS window, they can't continue to air it on the Golf Channel. But it's like, that's such an absolute nightmare and like such a disservice to your product, the fans, to your players. Like, missing Rory Birdie 7, the most iconic hole on that course, one of the most iconic holes. Like, I think if you asked average golf fans, like, unique courses, that's the hole they probably would bring up at Pebble Beach. And we missed the final grouping, play that entire hole. Like, it's an absolute nightmare, and like ties up everything that's wrong with the PGA Tour broadcast in a bow right there.
I don't know why there can't be, like you said, the contractual agreement, whatever that obligation or whatever that, stipulation is. It must be that hard cutoff, obviously, but there's no reason why they can't have an overlay, especially when you have something else playing. Like, make that part of the stipulation. If there's another game going, first of all, terrible scheduling on your part. I know you're trying to capture the audience, the sports fandom audiences of different sports on the weekend, especially, right? You got college ball. It's a big time of year, for all of sports. But still, there should be no reason why you can't put that into the contract of, if I have another sport, I mean, you shouldn't even be scheduling it this way, but if you do have another sport or something else that's playing, let them play, let them have the golf on the Golf Channel. It's the Golf Channel. It's like if it's like if NFL Network wasn't showing the highlights of the football games on NFL Sunday. They're still showing the highlights and stuff. Like, they're still skipping. red zone. We have red zone, but you can't do that with golf. It makes no sense. Like I just don't. I don't understand it.
Week in and week out, it remains a problem. But we got too many good things to talk about with the People's Open this week to kind of change the vibe of today's episode. But let's move on over to the Waste Management Phoenix Open. We'll talk about the odds here in just a second. We'll want to give a quick rundown in terms of what I'm looking at for the course. Curious to hear what you've kind of been looking at heading into this week, Joey. Obviously, we're pretty familiar with TPC Scottsdale at this point in time, right? Very unique course. It's one of my favorites on the PGA Tour, and I think more courses like more of the standard TPC courses or the regular courses that are featured on the PGA Tour should be set up like this. Like, it's set up for an exciting finish. There's a ton of risk reward holes on the back nine, and that's kind of how all of the par fives are. Like, you can get on the green in two very easily, but if you miss, you're going to find a water hazard and you're going to be scrambling in order to make par there. It's a really well set up course designed to be having an excellent finish, and I enjoy watching it year in and year out, and I wish like more TPC courses would have this style of setup. It's one where birdies, can be made. We can see low scores out there. We see them every year, but you can also find yourself in trouble because the course plays firm and fast. But it's a 7,261 yard par 71 located in the Sonoran Desert. Very benign fairway rough, Joey, only about 2 inches here, and it really never plays much of a factor in terms of greens in regulation. The thing is, though, you don't want to be missing big on this golf course because you have the classic desert elements and the terrain in terms of like the cacti and the marsh and whatnot. You can get away with missing the fairway small, but you can't really miss it big because that's when you bring big numbers into trouble and also could potentially find the water hazard. So, keeping it clean from tee to green is really big here. Bermuda green complexes that run very firm, very flat, very fast. Some of the easiest greens actually on the PGA Tour. And we've seen some guys from Team No Putt, some historical bad putters win at this course, a la Scotty Scheffler. I think he's actually had 2 of his 3 best career strokes gained putting performances at this golf course, which is very discouraging. I got to tell you, Joe.
Loves this place.
Yeah, absolutely loves this place. But very flat putting surfaces. You see a lot of putts made from inside 10 feet. Guys can really, get up and down and clean up for the most part. And you can see some putts made from outside of 20 feet. But it's not a very long golf course altogether. It's actually pretty similarly designed to TPC Summerlin in Las Vegas, a course that I've actually been able to see. They're right around the same yardages, both par 71s, both in the desert. I think TPC Scottsdale is a little bit tougher than TPC Summerlin, but they're pretty similar. So that's a course I've been looking at in terms of crossover this week. I think TPC Sawgrass is actually a pretty easy one as well. And you've just seen a lot of guys who have won either a U.S. Open or have won a Players Championship win at this tournament. Brooks Koepka, obviously Scotty Scheffler, the first player to ever go back-to-back at the Players. He's gone back-to-back here as well. TPC Twin Cities, I actually think, is one to look at also, even though that's up in Minnesota and obviously doesn't have some of the same terrain as this week, but that's another course that water hazards are kind of one of the main course defenses, and you usually see a winning score that's pretty similar to this one. I took a little bit of a look at TPC Southwind, which hosts the FedEx St. Jude tournament. Those are kind of the 4 courses that I really looked at. But short par 4s this week, you're mostly getting them between 420, 470 yards. So a lot of proximity in between 100 and 175 yards, Joey. That's where a lot of the iron shots are coming in. I talked about the par 5s. They're reachable in 2. Guys who I think play aggressive have the advantage on this golf course. Guys who can get on those greens in 2 shots, who can find those tough greens and dodge the water hazards. If you can make an eagle or 2, that goes a really long way on this golf course. So those are kind of some of the things I've looked at. I know you've probably created your own model at this point. What are some of the things you're really peeping at this week for TPC Scottsdale?
So it was weird because, I do have access to what your model has, of course, too, because we kind of share an account that way and we can build our own models. But I didn't have to change really much of anything. I liked on your original model. I didn't change a whole lot. The only thing I changed was the settings from 24 to the last 12 rounds mostly. And I because I was looking at pretty much the exact same things as you are. I did not see much of a difference there. I'm looking at bombers here, which I think it's a place where you can pretty much just bomb it and putt it. Those second shots, yes, of course, like, strokes gain approach. I do think scrambling could be important in certain areas too. But for the most part, like you said, you don't want to miss like far, but you can miss a little bit on the fairways and still be okay. So I wasn't, I really was looking at course history here too, like course history and some of those similar courses like Sawgrass for sure. Putting on fast greens. That was something I did take into consideration, even though, if you're a good putter, you're probably going to do pretty good here. Even if you're not, like Scotty, seems to be, putting really well here. So
it leaves the door open.
It does. I think there's so many different guys that can do well this week. It's kind of it's not, I wouldn't say it's like last week. I think we're going to see like the familiar faces who have done well here do well again, but I think that there's a couple that could surprise people, maybe not in the sense of like a course fit aspect, but just because they haven't maybe done that well here in the past, kind of like a Rory situation where it's like Rory, we know he could do really well anywhere, and he could have done well last week. He just hadn't done it yet, and I think that there's a couple of guys there that I'm seeing that I'm looking at the odds board and I'm like, yeah, I think that's a little bit enticing for a price. So I'm interested to see who you have. I was checking out your article there, but it sounds like you're not totally locked in with the decisions yet. So I'm kind of eager to dive in and see what we can land on.
Yeah, and to your point, this is, I believe, the third most predictive course on the PGA Tour behind only Augusta and Waialae Country Club. So a lot of guys who perform well here tend to perform well year after year. And you mentioned bombers. You do see a lot of bombers pop up. You don't necessarily need to be a bomber like Charlie Hoffman, Nick Taylor last year. Neither of them are necessarily bombers. Charlie Hoffman actually hits it pretty well for his age. But, Scotty, Hideki Matsuyama, we've seen here win twice. These are guys who all do have capable enough driving distance to win a major championship. And it's a really driver-heavy course. One of the biggest driver-heavy courses on the PGA Tour. Guys ship driver on basically every par 4 and par 5 here. So looking at, in terms of stats, some guys who have done well previously on driver-heavy golf courses. You mentioned you don't want to miss big. I'm looking at total driving and distance from edge of fairway this week. You kind of got to go and do some deeper digging in terms of that stat from where we have our models at rickrungood.com. But I think that's a really big stat this week because guys who, even if you do miss, you don't want to be missing big, and driving accuracy doesn't really tell you that statistic. It just tells you how often you don't miss. Doesn't tell you how big you miss. But I do think strokes gain approach, strokes gain ball striking is going to be very important. And just look at the guys who have won this tournament in the past, right? They're all guys who are dogs, who are elite approach players, elite ball strikers, and can have that spike putting week in order to win on this golf course. So those are things I'm looking at. Opportunities gained, bogey avoidance, and scrambling is something you do still got to do well around here. The winning score eclipsed -20 last year for the first time in 17 years, I believe. So kind of like Pebble, we see this winning score be right around 17 to 19 under year in and year out. I mentioned proximity, 100 to 175 yards. There's a lot of, if you look at rickrungood.com, it actually says there's a lot of approaches coming from 125 to 200. Quite honestly, I just think with the way the technology has gone these last few years, these guys hit it further. The ball is going to be rolling further this week. One thing I wanted to bring up as well, there was a lot of rain in the Scottsdale area prior to this tournament last year, and it played a little bit softer on Thursday and Friday, leading to, Nick Taylor, I think, shot 11 under 60 in the opening round last year en route to finishing at -21. So a lot of that scoring came in the first round. There's not been nearly as much rain in the Scottsdale area or on the West Coast. So I think it's probably going to be a -17 to -18 winner this week. So that's something to keep in mind. And with the course playing firmer, I think guys are just going to get more rollout on their drivers. So unless you're like one of the shortest guys in the field, I think most approach shots are going to be coming from inside 100 to 175 yards. And then par 4s, 450 to 500, some of the harder par 4s. All 3 par 5s are between 550 and 575 yards. And then I also have going for the green percentage and eagles gain, because as I mentioned earlier, I think aggressive play really gets rewarded on this type of golf course if you can pull off those types of golf shots. But talked enough about the research. If you want to hear more about it, make sure to go and check out my research article that I dropped at ontapsportsnet.com. Make sure to jump on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button as well. We would greatly appreciate all of the support. But Joey, jumping into the odds board, we mentioned the boogeyman, Scotty Scheffler, won here twice. I talked about his history on these putting greens. If he gains probably 2 strokes putting, he's going to win this bad boy by probably a couple of strokes. Has won at TPC Sawgrass a couple of times as well. The odds-on favorite at plus 280, which is just absolutely jaw-dropping against 131 other guys in the golf tournament. Justin Thomas at the top at 14, Hideki at 16, and then Sung Jae at 22, and Sam Burns at 25-1. You biting at all in the under 25-1 market this week, my friend?
So I'm really interested in a few guys here. Obviously, Scotty's just at a number where I just cannot even. It would pain me.
Dude, I tried to
bet that number.
I parlayed Scotty and the Chiefs since like plus 450. I'm like, dude, this is so stupid. Like,
okay, I thought about doing that. I did. I'll just ruin the surprise here since we're on the top of the board anyways. It's not even really that much of a surprise. I did bet Scotty parlayed with Travis Kelce MVP. 16-1, I think, was Kelce's MVP. And Scheffler, obviously, we know what his price is. I think it came out to, let me see what it came out to.
Y'all think Patty Mahomes is winning the MVP?
I mean, more than likely, it's going to be the quarterback if the Chiefs win. Obviously, it's going to be probably Mahomes. But here's the thing. Kelce catches 2 touchdown passes. Chiefs win. It might be Kelce. The rumor is that it might be retiring after this game, especially if they win. Don't know how true that is, but I mean,
they're gonna pump him up on his way out if that is the case.
The script is writing itself, and we don't want the Chiefs to win. We don't want that whole narrative to be fed. We don't want Scotty Scheffler to win.
No, we don't.
We don't want that whole narrative to be fed. If both things happen and we have an absolutely awful weekend, then it's plus 63.60 on Bet Rivers to parlay Travis Kelce MVP, Scotty Scheffler outright. So I put a little something on that, and that's the only way I'm betting Scotty Scheffler.
That's pretty solid. I do want to ask you off the top, since I guess this is a decent topic of conversation this week, given Scotty's course history here. Did you consider the without Scotty market at all this week?
No, just because I hate the prices. I'll just take the risk and hope that he doesn't win if I'm betting, which I am. I'm betting other guys. But I know that that's out there, and I know people are doing that. I've done it in the past, and I don't like doing it. So I'm not doing it. Have you done that this week?
No, I've never done the without Scotty market. I didn't do it last year. Maybe I'll dive into that this year if he goes off on the runs that he was last year. But I think just because we've cashed a ticket early on in the season, he didn't burn me last week. Like, I can play with the fire for one more week here this week, I believe. And plus 280 is so ridiculous, man. So ridiculous. He didn't win last year. I mean, like, maybe that's the reason why he's more likely to win this year, but he was there last year and he didn't do it, and I really thought he was going to do it. Like, when I saw him creeping up on that Saturday, I'm like, oh,
so did I.
He's going to repeat this mug. And then he kind of faded down the stretch on Sunday, which was crazy. He didn't do that very often the rest of the season. But, yeah, I'm in the same mentality as you. I didn't go to the without Scotty market. But are you getting anyone here at the top of the board?
Well, obviously, Justin Thomas is intriguing, and he's, he does really well in the desert courses. So I think that he's in play here, and he's got pretty good history here too. But Hideki is someone who I've bet each of the last 2 years here. He's 16-1, and I haven't. So I'm still in my decision making mode, like I was saying. But Hideki 16-1. I just think, man, already has the Century win this year. Last year he finished T22. Then the very next week, he won the Genesis last year.
You know how mad I was when that happened? Looking back at my bets, I went back and looked at my article from last year. I had Hideki in there as well. And like you, I have bet Hideki both of the last 2 years here. And to see him at 50-1 last year, we bet him at 50.
My God, I know.
fuck. And then, of course, and I know I bet him at what's even more frustrating, Joey. I cannot get this fucking guy right. Never.
I don't really either.
Dude, I bet him at the Century each of the last 2 years too, and he won this year. And of course, I didn't bet him. And of course, I had Morikawa. Dude, like literally seeing him, writing him up in my article last year for him to go and win the Genesis next week at 80-1 and to not be on him, like so painful. I have the same exact thoughts that you do about Hideki this week because of this scar tissue this guy gives me.
It's the FOMO.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's the FOMO too. Like I can't. That's where I'm really struggling because he's got the great track record here. Couple of wins, obviously, years ago. But the approach has been great. Like you just look at the way he's playing. Approach has been great. He's scrambling with the best of them. Like I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to miss it, man, but he is an asshole for sure.
No, so. I feel the same way about Hideki. I ultimately ended up passing on him only because like the stats they've been kind of trending in the wrong direction since that win. The approach has still been good at times. Like he gained almost 6.5 strokes with his irons at the Farmers at Torrey Pines. Like that's really noteworthy, but he almost dropped 3 strokes with his irons last week at Pebble Beach, almost lost 2 strokes off the tee, has now lost over a stroke off the tee in back-to-back weeks, has lost strokes with the putter in back-to-back weeks after popping really hot with them in his first 2 starts of the year. Like Hideki can definitely do it. And I was looking back at his history and he actually he won the Genesis with like a very similar stat line to what he has right here, right now. Like this was the stat line that he had going into the Genesis last year. He lost off the tee, lost with approach at Waste Management, and then went on to win next week. So like he certainly can do it and has the history here. But I think those were enough of reasons to talk me off. And I was on him last week at Pebble Beach and I tracked him a decent amount. And if you look at his Rick Run Good profile, he gained over 4 strokes around the green. Like this dude hit it out of bounds so many times and scrambled. He made some ridiculous scrambling pars last week. Like he hit it OB off the tee, had to re-tee and made par. He eagled his second ball on a par 5 to make par. Like he was scrambling out of his mind. So like I do worry that if that goes away, like his ball striking hasn't been good enough recently. But I'm definitely scared of Hideki. He's the one I fear the most at the top of this board. Other than Scotty, of course.
Yeah, other than I was going to say.
Other than Scotty, of course. I was never going to get there at plus 280 with Scotty. It's just not
right.
happening.
No, I agree though, man. Like this is the one that I'm struggling with the most. Yeah, that's about it out there. And then he said 20. There's a guy at 25 that I'm.
Is it Sungjae or Burns? I mentioned Sungjae and Burns. Are you in on Burns?
Oh, Burns is the one that I'm like also interested in. So yeah. I know a lot of people are. He's just proven he likes this place a lot. Like over the last couple of years, I mean, 3rd place last year, following the 6th place the year prior to that. I mean, Bermuda Burns, man, he's just really good on fast greens too. So I think like this could be a spot where you're going to need that, especially too, if you like you're saying with the conditions maybe not being as soft, not as easy on like the first round last year. So I think Burns is definitely intriguing to me at 25-1. Like if I don't do Hideki, I might go Burns, but then I'm also considering just wiping out the complete top part of this board and starting elsewhere. So yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts here with Burns, or like if you even had to? I know he's the most you're worried about is Hideki, but were you considering Burns here too?
Yeah, Burns was probably the second one that I was considering the most. There were because there's a DraftKings Sportsbook in Scottsdale. They had lines up for this bad boy for a while, and a lot of the guys they had listed in the field before they reset this on Monday were not going to play. So there were 25-1s out there for Justin Thomas for a long, long time. And I thought about
that's a great number.
Yeah, and I thought about it as someone who's been along on this Justin Thomas ride. As someone who's bet on him a couple of times already this year, I do worry with how wayward he's gotten with the driver. Like he missed bad a lot at Pebble Beach last week. And I know the conditions obviously won't be the same here. And he has a great track record around this place, but he had a good track record around Pebble Beach as well. And 25 definitely better than the numbers I've been betting the last few weeks. I just ultimately passed on this board, the top of the board altogether, but Burns makes sense for a lot of reasons as well. Really good in the desert. You mentioned the finishes he's had here. Some high-end finishes at the American Express as well. And he was charging really hard on Sunday last year. I remember he gained over 5 strokes to the field alone on Sunday and can light it up with the putter. Gained over 4 strokes with the flat stick last year, over 10 strokes with the putter back in 2021. So, yeah, he's got a good feel for this place. The only thing that turned me off of Sam Burns was he's lost strokes with his irons in 5 consecutive events, and they've all been for at least 1 stroke. He hasn't gained strokes with his irons yet in 2025, and I just don't know if you can beat Scotty Scheffler that way. You're asking your putter to do, well, you have to gain like 9 to 10 strokes putting in order to win this tournament if you're going to lose strokes with your irons.
You're going to have to Thomas Dietrich this bitch. I don't know.
And not gag down your leg on Sunday.
Yeah. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't really see it happening with Burns either, but like really good desert profile, really good on driver heavy golf courses as well. And the driver has been working well for him. I think it's trending in the right direction for Burns. Whenever he gets those irons back, they're just not quite there yet for me, but it is a fair price tag.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. You're probably putting me more towards the Hideki if I do have to pick with one of those two, but then again, I might just completely pass it and just be like, well, I hope this isn't, your pick from last year where, you just didn't pick them in the Genesis. That's the win, because that would drive me absolutely nuts with the last 2 years betting him here. And then this is the year that he does it. I would be furious.
I can't get this guy right to save my life. So I passed on the top of the board. I do, last thing I'll say about the top of the board, I don't think there's a ton of interest for Hideki this week. Even though he does have a lot of history, I haven't seen a ton of people. Like, if people are going to the top of the board, I think they're going to Justin Thomas or they're going to Sam Burns. I don't think anyone's touching Sung Jae at those numbers.
I like that, though. I like that people aren't on Hideki.
I wonder if you could get a 20. Like, if it gets to 20, that would even have me maybe intrigued. There's flat 16s out there right now. I know Bet Rivers is only at 14, so their boost is only getting to 16, but that's something to monitor. Last thing I'll say about the top of the board, but let's go on down to this next range because I definitely have interest in here since I'm fading the top. I'm sure you will as well. Let's go between, since there's not a lot of guys here, let's go between 30 and under 60. So we have Tom Kim at 33, Sepp Straka, who played phenomenal again last week, is at 40-1. Corey Connors at 45, along with Sahith Theegala. And then Benny An is at 50, Rasmus Højgaard at 55. We'll stop it there before we get into the 60s. So you got anyone, Tom Kim, Straka, Connors, Theegala, Benny An, or Højgaard? You got any interest in this range?
A lot. Kim makes sense for a lot of reasons. Obviously, I don't think he's going to miss fairways. Like, he's not going to miss far fairways. I think this just could be a really good week for him. I'm probably going to bet Theegala and Straka. Thegala's 45-1. I mean, in his good finishes here, it's not like he had the best form or placements leading up to those events in the past.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe it's not really that important for him here, not coming in with the best form, just looking at his track record here and where he was prior and over, the 3 trips that he's had here to Scottsdale or TPC Scottsdale. He's finished, top 5 twice, including the T3 in his first time ever here. So I think Theegala, I really like that at 45-1. It's a good number. Straka's on fire. I mean, he got sick or whatever this past weekend, and that might have held him back a little bit over there towards the end. But I mean, he started out really hot. He was up, I think, 3 or 4 strokes at one point, and we were just sitting there texting each other back and forth. And I'm like, we're gonna need him to kind of cool down. We're gonna need Jason Day to play. It was back when Jason Day was still in it, but
oh my god, I forgot about Jason Day.
Yeah, neither here nor there. We wanted to forget about Jason Day. But Straka 45-1. I mean, he apparently he still finished T7, obviously, and that was coming off the win a few weeks ago. So at the Amex, he doesn't have the greatest track record at TPC Scottsdale, but some decent outings at TPC Sawgrass, 5th in strokes gained tee to green, and strokes gained approach over the last 24 rounds too. So I'm really liking Straka there. Your boy, Corey Connors.
Oh, yeah.
45-1. I just think he's interesting. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not, but positive for strokes gained at TPC Scottsdale, but negative in versus expectations. So maybe some positive regression there coming, I think, with Corey Connors. He's fourth in strokes gained off the tee over the last 24 rounds. This scrambling kind of worries me a little bit. That's something to be definitely you got to be looking at. But so I guess that's kind of the one thing maybe holding me back here. Well, not the only thing, but one of the main things. But yeah, no, this is just a really good range. I gotta look back and see who else was in this range. But yeah, I do really love this range. Who are you getting to here?
Yeah, so I made 2 bets in this range over the weekend when there were still those original odds out at DraftKings. I bet Tom Kim at 45-1, and I also bet Sahith at 50, just because I thought they were really good numbers. And I actually bet that Tom Kim bet before he did what he did over the weekend at Pebble Beach. Obviously, a little disappointing that he wasn't able to finish strong on Sunday, but he was one of the few guys who it felt like was actually capable of challenging Rory McIlroy. And whenever it's these shorter setups, like I just feel so good about Tom Kim and his chances, because it's where he's won on the PGA Tour in his young career. And 2 of his 3 wins have come at TPC Summerlin in Las Vegas, which, as I mentioned earlier, has a lot of similarities to TPC Scottsdale. Short, par 71, a lot of desert elements and terrain, played at elevation a little bit. So he's very familiar with these types of settings. And it's just coming off of a phenomenal week at Pebble Beach, T7. The irons really came back. Even though he doesn't have like the best history at TPC Scottsdale, I think what goes under the radar is how well he played through the final 54 holes last year. He was tied for 5th in the field at minus 13 over those final 3 days. Just sadly shot himself in the foot with a 3 over first round. And like Hideki, Tom Kim is someone I've actually bet here each of the last 2 years. Even though he doesn't have the best results, I do feel like this is a good spot for him because of the course setup. And like, I really do think he has the type of fuel and self-belief and confidence to like handle the ruckus crowds. And I think he's actually one of the guys who feeds off of those types of situations. And we've seen him, rise to the big stage many times in his career. I referenced in my article that I dropped, he, dueled with Scotty Scheffler at the Travelers Championship last year, and that's one of the most chaotic atmospheres, going head-to-head with Scotty, again, on a shorter type of setup. Like, these are the types of jams that I usually like Tom Kim at, and ranked really highly in my model, 12th among all players in my model this week, 2nd in approach, 1st in greens gained, which is really big. And you mentioned a guy who will keep it clean from tee to green. He was 4th in distance from edge of fairway on the PGA Tour last season. So when he does miss, he doesn't miss really big. He's also 2nd in proximity from 125 to 150, 3rd in tee to green, 23rd in bogey avoidance over the last 24 rounds. So a lot of the key stats that I'm looking at, he rates out really well in this week. And you mentioned Sahith. I just thought 50-1 was a more than fair number for Sahith. Guy who I bet last year, came really close, played in the final pairing, and he just seems destined to win a TPC Scottsdale eventually. 2 top 5 finishes in his first 3 starts here. And you mentioned too, like, didn't really have the best lead-in form entering those weeks and still found a way to contend. Yeah, the stat profile doesn't look pretty right now, but I think 50-1 is like a really fair number on Sahith. And I don't want to like compare him to like Hideki, but it feels like one of those numbers, like looking back at this right now and seeing Hideki at 50-1 last year, like I wouldn't be surprised in a year's time if Sahith was 18 or 22-1 at this tournament. So 50 feels like a really good price. And I mentioned some of the TPC courses that I'm looking at that are similar to TPC Scottsdale. Sahith finished highly at all of them last year. T9 at the Players Championship, T6 at the 3M Open at TPC Twin Cities, and then he also has a pair of T13s at the FedEx St. Jude Championship. Someone who's also very comfortable on the West Coast, growing up in California. Really good track record on desert courses, and he's never lost strokes off the tee, around the green, or with the putter here in 3 starts. And he's gained strokes with his irons in 2 of the 3 outings. Both of them have been for over 3.5 strokes. So, like, this is a really good, comfortable spot for Sahith. 50 feels like a really good price. Sepp was someone I definitely looked at as well. A guy who keeps the ball clean from tee to green, doesn't really miss very big, dialed in with his irons right now. I do worry about him chipping. He has chipped well each of the last 2 weeks, but that was like, that's like his kryptonite. Sepp cannot chip whatsoever. And the putter kind of went wayward last week. You mentioned the course history. That's ultimately what I think will keep me off of Sepp Straka, but he certainly has the upside to go and win this bad boy. If we haven't learned that over the last 2 weeks, kind of shame on us. Those are really the guys that I've been looking at. Corey Connors, you mentioned, like, gonna keep it in play off of the tee. He's just so bad with the putter, and he's so bad with he can't
That
chip
too.
either. Like, he had one good putting week. He actually like really progressed with the putter last year, but it's super hilarious that he gained like 8 strokes with the putter at the Century, and he still finished like T5 and never had a sniff. Like, you get those types of performances out of Corey Connors, he should be winning golf tournaments.
That should be an easy dub for him. Yeah,
he lost strokes with his irons last week. Like, Corey Connors, probably book him as a T7 finish. I just don't think he's going to win this thing.
Oh, that's more than fair. Yeah, there's the putter and the scrambling. That's definitely something to look at and be like, I'm not sure this week. I love what you had to say about Sahith though. That's absolutely like, being the Cali, like this is a setup for Sahith for sure without the history.
You play Sahith at Sahith setups. That's like, he's done well at those types of courses in his career.
And I could see that, like what you're saying, like the 18-1 next year. Who knows? Possibly. Like he could easily rattle off a couple of wins this season. I think that's more than possible for Sahith.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on down to this next range, though, because I think this is a really interesting range, too. And this is honestly the range where I have, like, my final decisions left to make. I really only have bet the guys that got good numbers with DraftKings at over the weekend. I've only made one other bet, and it came at 90-1. So this really is the range, Joey, where I got to make some decisions. We're going 60, and then we'll stop before we hit 80. A lot of guys in this range, so bear with me here. But we got Mav McNeely, Bobby Mack, and Siwoo at 60. You got Billy Horschel and Nick Taylor at 65. Postman, Kurt Kitayama at 66. JJ Spawn, Minwoo Lee at 70. Akshay and Cam Young at 75, along with Luke Clanton, Max Grazerman, and the Windy City Flyer at 75-1 as well. A lot of good names in this range. A lot of good numbers. Where were your kind of eyes taking you?
I mean, the disrespect for Mr. Nick Taylor, who's just coming off of a victory here.
I know. It's kind of crazy.
That's pretty insane to me. I think and I got him at 65-1, so I had to hit that number. I just think it's just, obviously he won it and then he finished second the year before that. Like, that's not luck. It's not a fluke when you win it the year after you finish runner up. So to be 65-1, he should be closer to 30, I think, in my book. And I don't care really who's in the field. I think this is it's just a misprice. And I mean, even if this turns out to be a bad bet and he just shits the bed this week, I have to do it. And he also has, the Sony Open win in Hawaii already this year. So he's just very undervalued at this point. So I had to go there. Mav McNeely, he's somebody I've bet each of the last 2 years here.
Really?
And last year I bet him at 370-1.
Did you really?
370-1.
That's crazy. I think I remember talking about him on the show, because I remember he was really still like, this was his first top 10 back from that shoulder injury that really bothered him for a while. What a shout by you. He was actually mixing. He had a chance to win.
He finished 6th last year.
Yeah, he had a chance.
Year before, obviously, he withdrew, so he wasn't even in the tournament. So I got my money back on that, which is nice. I didn't put a whole lot into the 370-1 number.
Are you sure you got your money back? He played.
I thought he withdrew though. Oh no!
In the middle of the tournament.
Yeah, no. So I didn't get my money back.
I was like, damn, the sportsbook hooked you up.
No, that's a bad call by me. For some reason, I was thinking he withdrew before the tournament, but it was actually during the tournament that.
I was like, I need to bet at that sportsbook.
No, they are not that giving. That did not happen. So
370-1 for Mav. That's crazy.
Dude, a crazy number, but it didn't end up hitting. But I was pumped, man. I was like, can we get this done, please? Like it. Obviously, it didn't happen. Not quite the same odds this year, 66-1. That's not, when you're golfing as well as he is too, like in certain aspects, like when he's on his game, he's one of the best putters on firm and fast greens too. Like this is a guy that absolutely can get it done this week. So if he can contend at 370-1 when no one's really expecting him to, 66-1 is just a fair, very, very fair price, I think, to me, when I really look at him and I think he should probably be in that 45 range or kind of in that card or that tier with Sahith, where Sahith maybe should be at like 30-1. So yeah, I like Mav. Other guys in this area, I think Billy Ho is kind of a guy who I could see doing well this week. I'm not going to bet him, but like him and the Postman are really, this range is just it's another really good range. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts here too.
Yeah, I got thoughts on a lot of guys in this range, but I'll start with Mav McNeely because I did bet Mav as well. I sadly did not bet him at 371 like you did last year. But I mentioned this was kind of in 2023. This was when like it first all really started going south for him in terms of his injury, and he withdrew from the tournament, ended up having to miss 6 months. And I mentioned a moment ago that the T6 that he had was his first top 10 back. So I feel like it would be really fitting for Mav to kind of have everything come full circle. Now, obviously, those great stories don't always happen, but desert golf makes a lot of sense for Maverick McNeely. He's a West Coast type of guy who performed really well on this golf course last year, gained strokes all across the board, including 7.7 from tee to green. And you mentioned a guy who historically putts very, very well on firm and fast greens. Sadly, the putter has just been broken for him lately. He lost almost 5 strokes putting last week at Pebble Beach and lost a stroke and a half at the Farmers Insurance Open. And with both of those coming on the West Coast, and Mav's a West Coast guy, like that is a little worrisome to me, but he's just striping the ball so good right now. Ever since he finally broke through and got the maiden win at the RSM Classic to close out last year, like he's been on a great run still. 4.7 strokes gained. He gained, what is that? He gained 8.5 strokes ball striking at the Century to begin the year, and that's in a signature event against the best players on tour. Last week, at Pebble Beach, gained over 5 strokes ball striking again in a signature event. So he's flushing the ball right now, and it's like a kind of a shame that he's not able to putt like he normally does, but gained 1.5 strokes putting on this course last week. Rates out pretty well in my model. He's 17th among all players in the field. 15th in tee to green, 15th in birdie or better, 8th in opportunities, 17th in greens gained, 18th in strokes gained off the approach. And another guy like Sahith, who has done very well at those other courses that I'm looking at, TPC Sawgrass, T9 last year, TPC Twin Cities, he finished T3 there last year as well, has a T16 and a T10 under his belt at the Shriners Children's Open, so is very comfortable with desert golf as well and similar style TPC setups. I do admittedly worry about Mav getting across the finish line because I've even gone back and looked at some of the tournaments he was close in going into Sunday, and even his win, he didn't play all that well on Sunday at the RSM Classic. So I do worry about this big scene and the environment being a little
does
bit.
he have the stones there with that?
I do worry about Mav having the stones, but I think 66-1 is a very fair price for a guy who finished T6 and is striping the golf ball as well that he is right now. So I jumped on Mav at 66-1, but I got thoughts on a lot of guys in this range, dude. Robert McIntyre, I think, is a really interesting name just in terms of guys who actually have win equity and win equity and actually won't be afraid of the moment. I don't think Robert McIntyre would be afraid of the moment at all. He's a guy who's stepped up and made some really big putts to win the Scottish Open, won the Canadian Open, winning some really big putts. I think it would be fitting if he happened to win the People's Open as well. And he's been on a really good run from tee to green outside of his approach these last couple of weeks, sadly. But looking at his tee to green numbers dating back to September of last year, he's gained at least 4 strokes from tee to green in 9 of his last 11 starts. And if he just happens to make putts, I know Robert McIntyre has the winning upside. Doesn't have good course history here. He's only played here once and missed the cut, but I think 61 is a fair number for his actual win equity. I feel the same way about Nick Taylor at 65-1. I think that's a really good number. There's been a lot of steam for Billy Horschel this week. He opened at 100 and is now down to 65. He's got, I think, 2 top 20s in the last 3 years here and absolutely rolls the ball beautifully on this course. So Billy Horschel's interesting. I think Siwoo's a little bit interesting. He finally showed some life last week at Pebble Beach, and these are the types of courses, these shorter setups, Siwoo typically wins at those courses and has won the Players Championship. Mentioned earlier, like a lot of guys who win the Players win this tournament as well. JT Poston's absolutely flushing the golf ball right now, but like Maverick McNeely, cannot make a putt to save his life, but won the Shriders Children's Open in the past. If you look at the model, Kurt Kitayama pops in like everyone's model because
he's Russell Henley this week.
He was absolutely the flushing the golf ball during the fall and has kind of lost it. Like, then you got Akshay at 75. You got Wyndham Clark at 75. Like, that's a really good number for Wyndham, who's a Scottsdale native. I think he was fifth in the first round last year. And like, we're starting to get to those real disrespectful Wyndham numbers where it's like, I don't even care what he's been up to. Like 80-1 is good enough for me. So like, there are so many guys that I like in this range. And this is again, where I have to make these final decisions, but like I could make cases for like 9 of these guys in the 60 to 80-1 pocket.
You're absolutely spot on. Like, this is a very difficult week to pick from this range. And, you know, that's why I don't think it's the craziest thing ever to even start your card at, like, if you wanted to start your card at 65 or 60-1 and just get like 7, 8 of these guys and just stockpile them and say, hey, one of these guys are going to be in contention and I'm going to have a fun Sunday. That's
what I'm thinking. I think I'm starting my card at Tom Kim 45. I don't think I'm going to go lower than that. And I'm just going to pepper this range.
I think that's a great strategy, man. Like I really do. And I don't always, I mean, you know, when we first started doing these shows, like the first year, I was the guy who didn't want to start at anything. Like I did not want to go top of the board at all. Like I was just totally against it. And then I started to get a little bit more with it and at least getting one of them in. This is a week where it's like, if it's not Scotty Scheffler or it's not Hideki, which would drive me insane if I don't bet him. It's just a week where you can do that. Like, tinker around with it. I mean, like you said, we do have the win under our belt here recently, so you got a little bit of change in the pocket to play with.
It makes everything a little easier having that win, doesn't it?
It does, dude. You could take a little bit more risk. Now, we lose again this week, and then maybe next week we get a little bit more cautious.
We don't think that way. We don't think that way.
Right. We shouldn't even say that. I didn't even mean to say that out in the world. But no, man, I do really like this range, and I think Kitayama, like, that's somebody who I also had to take a little very strong look at, and it is a lot to do with, you know, the Russell Henley effect with the models, but like you look at the recency and he's just, you know, approach tee to green off the tee, like this guy's got it in the bag for the last 24 rounds. And I mean, it's pretty wild when you're looking at it that, I mean, why wouldn't he be in play here at this right. number? So, you know, even just under this, I mean, Wyndham Clark, like I've seen some talk too about like Max Grazerman, like Luke Clanton, like people are kind of hyping them up this week too. And there's reasons behind that. I'm personally, you know, I don't think that this is the week for either one of those two, but like Grazerman has shown too, like, you know, he's contended in some decent tournaments. So I wouldn't say that this would be a bad week for them. Like, I can understand it. So yeah, this is not a week where I'm going to go super long. Like, I'm not getting the 200-1 guys. I don't know about you, but like this 45 to 100 range, very, very strong.
Yeah, I'm in a complete agreement with you. This is where I'm ultimately going to live. And even some of the guys you just mentioned there are like interesting. One thing I will say about Grazerman, he withdrew last weekend due to a hand injury. I don't know if that was like a big deal or not, but definitely something to monitor. But like, dude, even Minwoo has started to figure it out with the irons over on the DP World Tour before coming over to the United States this year. And that was kind of his weakness last year. Luke Clanton makes this should be a really good course for Luke Clanton. I don't expect him to go and win in this type of setting, but like, we know the kid's got game. 75-1's a good number. I'm not going to bet Cam Young, but like, this is a really good Cameron Young golf course. And he finished T8 here last year. His game's in abysmal form right now, but like, I'm sure there will probably be people who get suckered into that number. I'll tell you what, last thing I'll say about this range before we go on to the next one, I'm keeping a stern eye on that Wyndham number, and it is just drifted.
If it keeps going, man.
It's fine with me. If it gets to 80, I'm going to bet it. I'm probably going to bet it at 75. Dude, he's a Scottsdale native. He plays well on the West Coast. Like, dude, Wyndham can win.
Can get an 80 right now.
Let's just keep waiting. Let's just keep waiting. Just keep waiting. Like, we're just going to let that bad boy keep drifting. We're just going to let it keep drifting. I'm going to bet Wyndham. I don't give a fuck. He can win.
I have no problem
Almost
with
won
that.
at TPC Scottsdale last year. Like, he can win. There's
no problem with
no
that.
one who gets disrespected more in the outright number more than Wyndham. Like, he's volatile, and you learned last week, like, he's volatile. He can finish dead fucking last.
That's fine, though. I don't care if he can fit. Listen, if you're going to lose, I'm not saying I want this from everybody because I want at least like one golfer to make it interesting.
Dead last pays the same as
like,
second.
It's the same. It doesn't pay.
Doesn't pay.
It's the same exact way. And I will say too, there was looking at Roto Grinders like win probability. The guys we were talking about here. Gracerman, I know you're talking about. You know, he might have the injury. Gracerman, win probability, he's 10th according to them, and Tom Kim's 11th, and Luke Clanton is 12th. Matt McNeely 13th. So like
that.
If you're Gracerman, you're 10th, and Clanton, you're 11th, you're 12th.
Crazy.
Like, that's a very strong win probability from, a pretty good, like, they do a really good job of coming up with these, what they put into their own model. Like, this isn't a tinkered model that I played with on their site. This is just their own projection. So I just find that really interesting when I see stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of interesting names in this range. But let's move on down. Let's go between 80 and 100 before we get to the bombs real quick. Got Ricky by himself. Oh, no, Ricky and Davis Thompson are both at 80, excuse me. Andrew Novak, who's been popular this week, is at 90, along with Austin Eckroat and Bo Hostler and Denny McCarthy. Jordan Spieth, 90-1 as well, with Keith Mitchell and Lucas Glover. Max Homa, like Wyndham Clark, that number just keeps on drifting. Sam Stevens is at 90, and Tom Hollywood Hoagie at 90 as well. Where are you thinking before 100, my buddy?
Well, Max Homa, we can just keep on sending it because I'm not going to bet it anytime soon.
Unlike Wyndham, that thing can keep drifting to 200. I'm not betting it. I'm not betting it.
No, he's going to have to show me something before that thing gets back on before the pocket starts opening up here for Mr. Homa. But this is, another really good spot here, another really good range. Bo Hostler was somebody who I've bet here in the past. I don't know if it was I think it was last year where I bet him here without looking. So he's interesting. Novak, man, he's another guy who's kind of popping up in the models.
Been playing really well.
Yeah, he's been. Is it? I think what a lot of people are wondering is this kind of a hot stretch? But even if it is a hot stretch, you can ride that wave into something. So I wouldn't put it past him, popping up here. I think, Spieth, I don't know. I can't do it because I didn't see enough from him, especially like even last week. He was okay in certain spots. Like there was times that he played well last week, but I don't think he has enough right now moving in the right direction. Lucas Glover, man, 90-1. Like this is another outrageous number here. Like
Agreed.
He's on fire right now, and
I smashed it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, man. Another guy doesn't have the greatest track record here. We kind of talked about before the show. We really do we would like to look at course history here, but real high end. He doesn't have the real high end finishes that you might look for, but he's still made 12 of 15 cuts here. It's
like astronomical how good this guy is at finishing between T30 and T50 on this golf course. Like it's incredible.
Like I don't understand how, and that's still like not terrible, right? Like, but that's where he's been, but he hasn't been this hot, I don't think, coming into those weeks in the past too. Like, I mean, he's first in strokes gained approach over the last 36. Average strokes gained on this course is positive too, while one of the other guys mentioned earlier, his versus expectations are negative. So I'm looking at that as maybe that's a little positive regression coming here too for Lucas Glover. So I just like finding those little outliers where you can, and it's a smash. Like you didn't really have to even think that hard about it, but I do like looking a little bit at those layers there. Sam Stevens, 95-1 with the enhanced that you can get him at.
Yeah, good number.
I don't know if I'm gonna bet it, but I mean, I don't think that's that 95-1. I don't think that's crazy. Finished second at the Farmers. Off the tee and approach has been really good. I don't know if I can trust the putter just based off like the last, 24 rounds. But I mean, he's third in strokes gained putting on fast greens. So, you know what I mean? You kind of give and take what you can there. I don't know. Maybe he puts it together this week. Those are the guys I think I'd be looking at here. Definitely 100% Lucas Glover, but possibly Sam Stevens too, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I bet Lucas Glover 100%, man. 90-1, more than fair. Even though, as we outlined, he doesn't have the best track record here. Somehow in 15 career starts, he's never finished better than T20.
Crazy.
Which is crazy. But as you mentioned, I don't know if he's ever been in as good a form as he is right now. And literally there was one stat that got me in on Lucas Glover. Over the last 24 rounds, he's fourth in strokes gained putting. I mean, like, when Lucas Glover makes putts, you have to pay attention because it's awesome. I find it so funny that Lucas Glover at 45 years old, no gloves, just walks up there and is legitimately one of the best ball strikers on the PGA Tour. Like, legitimately,
he's dialed with
dude,
that. Yeah,
pure just grown man dad strength is like what Lucas Glover is all about. And he gained over three strokes putting last week at Pebble Beach, and that's with losing a stroke and a half on Sunday. And dude, legit, if anyone was chasing down Rory last week, I think it was Glover. Like, he was giving himself birdie look after birdie look after birdie look. It's just like, sadly, the story of Glover's life. Like, can he make putts on Sunday? That's like what it comes down to. But the irons are so good. Gained almost 6 strokes with his irons last week in his signature event against the best players on tour. Lucas Glover in these windy and wet conditions, no gloves, is just absolutely flushing. And he doesn't miss big. He was 5th on the PGA Tour in distance from edge of fairway last year. Even when he like loses strokes off the tee, it's because he's not long. And I don't think that's really going to penalize him this week when he's just so good of a second shot player. I do worry that like the around the green, when he does miss greens, like hopefully his irons are so on that he's not missing all that much. The around the green hasn't been good as it's like been for him historically. Like, he's usually a really good around the green player, but the putter is working so well for him right now, man. He's gained strokes putting in 6 of his last 7 measured starts. And what's tragic about that is the one start where he lost strokes putting was at the Black Desert Championship, where of course I had money on him. He gained 13 and a half strokes with his irons that week and came T3. One of, I believe, 3 people since they started keeping stats who have gained 13 strokes with their irons and didn't win a golf tournament. Like, a legitimate statistical anomaly was Lucas Glover at the Black Desert Championship. But he's got three T3s over his last 8 starts, number 5 in my model this week. And he was high up on both of our models last week. And even as a big Glover guy, I like elected to ignore it. I kind of wanted to see something first. But you jumped all aboard. Really good call, even though he didn't wind up cashing, unfortunately. But 4th in strokes gained putting over the last 24 rounds. That's huge for Glover. He's still 6th in scrambling, even though I've mentioned some of the around the green problems that he's had. 7th in bogey avoidance, 9th in opportunities gained, 10th in approach, 11th tee to green. Like, legitimately, if I gave you those statistics, you would think I'm talking about like Xander Schauffele, but no, I'm talking about 45-year-old Lucas Glover.
Hideki, or who is this? Like,
legitimately, it's Lucas Glover. He just bangs with his irons, dude. If he needs to make some putts this week, I do have some concerns about it because he hasn't rolled it like super well on these greens historically. However, what is interesting, Joey, whenever he has rolled it well here, he's gained multiple strokes. When he has gained, he's never gained fewer than 1 stroke, and he's gained over 2 strokes 3 different times. So like, there is the upside possible there. I know he's going to be giving himself looks. I know he's not going to miss big. 90-1 was a really fair number for Lucas Glover that I jumped aboard on.
You also have to think too, when a guy like Glover is out there, like you said, like the dad strength, the age, like that plays a factor too with these raucous crowd. I mean,
dude, Lucas Glover, that's a really good point. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to bring this up specifically and I forgot about it. I texted one of my buddies earlier today. That guy would not give a fuck by the drunk people out there. He is like old Southern boy who's won a US Open, played on a Ryder Cup, won a PGA Tour playoff event. Like, I don't think the shit show out there is going to rattle old Lucas Glover.
No, he's probably just like, damn you kids making all this noise, and just keeps fucking hammering the ball. Like
Damn you kids and your EDM music.
it just sinks it. Like I don't think he gives a damn what's going on in the back. He's probably too old to be able to hear what's actually going on. That's the problem. He probably needs a hearing aid or something. I was actually thinking as you were talking, and I'm sorry, that was really mean. I was thinking while you were talking about the no gloves and still coming out there with a dad strength. Like, is he like golf's version of like Moises Alou? Like, does he? We know he almost like he was like sweating through his pants at points last season. Like, does he like piss on his hands too and just go out there and freaking hammer hammer the ball? Like Lucas Glover's, there's something going on with Lucas Glover, and whatever it is, it's working, man.
The
Like
grip.
he's doing something.
Yeah, he's got that grip dialed.
Yeah.
But I also did think Sam Stevens was interesting in this range at 95-1. The irons have been really good for him recently. He's always like a good long hitter off of the tee. We saw that at Torrey Pines. I do worry about him getting a little bit wayward here, but 95-1 I think is a really fair number. And honestly, dude, I was considering your boy Tom Hoagie Buns this week as well.
Yeah, the irons would be. I mean, the wedges.
So
like he's this would be a good spot for Hoagie, man. Like, I don't know. He's a tough one. He's a tough one for sure because I always have interest in Hoagie.
I know you do.
Yeah, man. Is it somebody that you might do? You might still do it?
Yeah, no, I'm seriously thinking about it at 100-1. He's actually been close twice at this tournament through 54 holes. In 2020, he was right there, lost a stroke and a half in the final round to finish T25. And then in 2022, same thing. He had gained almost 7.5 strokes to the field through 3 rounds and then just didn't have it on Sunday and finished T14. 100-1 seems like fair number for Tom Hoagie. Obviously, I've talked like about a lot of guys in this 60 to 100-1 pocket, and like those are the decisions I'm gonna have to make and cutting it down. But I obviously already pulled trigger on Lucas Glover. I'd probably lean towards Hoagie over Stevens personally.
Yeah, I mean I could definitely see it. I feel like he's realistically like Hoagie probably has a little bit more. He's got a little bit more where he's believable to win than Stevens. Like Stevens pops, but that I don't think he actually has a realistic chance of winning. If I know that's weird because he does have a realistic chance of winning, but I feel like Hoagie, like he can be more of a finisher if he's in position.
Hoagie's wedges are so good, man. They are just so good. They're hard
So
to
good.
ignore. But let's go over 100-1. We're at that time. I have 2 bets made over 100-1.
All right, who you got? Because I don't have any right now.
I bet Gary Woodland at 110, and I bet my boy Lee Hodges at 120.
Oh, that's a good call. That's a really good call here. You always talk about like not difficult, but
driver heavy
courses. This is absolutely a Lee Hodges playground type of like it could be.
Yeah, I've pumped up Lee Hodges playground. I like that. I'm going to steal that line if he somehow happens to win this bad boy. He has missed the cut in 2 appearances here, but he's putting so well right now. The irons like haven't been as good as I've like wanted them to be to capitalize on the swing, but he still finished T9 at the Farmers Insurance Open. Like that's noteworthy for Lee Hodges, a guy who like doesn't get a ton of buzz and is over 100-1 week in and week out. And he's been one of the best putters on the PGA Tour to begin 2025. And the West Coast is usually where he like struggled to putt early in his career, but gained over 6 strokes at the Sony, over 5.5 strokes at the Farmers, nearly 3 last week at Pebble Beach. Ended up finishing T33, but he was right there through 36 holes. And I've been pumping the air on Lee Hodges for a while now. I still feel the same way that he's going to win something of substance this year. So 120 seemed more than fair. Gary Woodland, we talk about guys who have won U.S. Opens, who have also won. Sadly, I wanted to bet Gary at the Farmers Insurance Open, but he pulled out. Didn't get on him at Pebble Beach last week, and quite honestly, I forgot that he was even there. But he finished T22, gained another 2.5 strokes with his irons, gained off the tee. This is more of a classic Gary setup, though, where he can go and mash driver and has a good history at the Waste Management Open as well. Won here way back in 2018, finished T7 the next year in 2019, T5 back in 2011. Usually gains strokes with his irons, and it's usually like 3 or 4 strokes, like Gary mashes here. And similar to similar to Lucas Glover, doesn't gain strokes with the flat stroke year in and year out, but when he gains strokes, it's usually noteworthy. 2.1 last year in 2024, 3.9 in 2020, 3.3 in 2018. So the upside is there for Gary Woodland. I got him in at 110, and yeah, Lee Hodges at 120. Where were you thinking over 100? There's only a few guys that I kind of wanted to shout or have legitimate interest in.
No, those are great calls. I actually really like the Lee Hodges and the Gary Woodland calls because I was going to ask you about Gary Woodland. So I'm glad that you mentioned him, and I was going to ask you too. Is it bedtime?
Jake nap time?
Yeah, is it nap time?
I still need to see more.
Okay, that's fair.
I need to see 4 rounds out of Jake Knapp, but he's starting to finally piece it together. I don't think this is a good course for Jake Knapp, though. I like Jake Knapp on course where he can just grip it and rip it and have no worries. That's not exactly TPC Scottsdale.
Yeah, and then there's another guy down the board who, I mean, it seems like a crazy number, but I understand it at this point. 350 to 1, man.
We're really scrolling. Is it Webb?
The Shankopotamus.
Oh, the Shankopotamus, my boy. Almost knocked over my microphone. Excuse me.
The Shankopotamus will do that. I don't know, man. He's been decent here the last couple times.
Has he been? I'm trying to find him in my model. I know he's like, he was fighting back from an injury.
He's 17th last year, 23rd the year before. I don't necessarily truly buy him as a winner, but I mean, that's like one of those where it's almost like the Mav McNeely from a year ago. like I might just throw a little sprink, like just a little sprinkle. I don't mind doing something crazy like that. And it's Super Bowl week where I'm going to lose $5 on a coin toss, like with my buddy. Like,
I get it.
Let's just lose $5 on the Shankopotamus too while we're at it.
No, I absolutely get it. Has putted well here each of the last 2 years. 350, like, I don't hate it. Where was I thinking in this range? There was only a couple numbers that really intrigued me. I know Bet Rivers Enhanced has Daniel Berger at 150 to 1. It's a good number.
Good number. Really good number.
I'm a big Daniel Berger guy, and even I still haven't been like fully in terms of him winning a golf tournament coming off of this injury. I am encouraged by what I see, and I think he's trending in the right direction. Has some good course history here. I don't know if he could do it for 4 full days, but it's a good number for Daniel Berger. I had to pull up the pride of Buffalo Grove. I got to find his stat profile. Doug Gim, who legitimately, he might be Scotty Scheffler, dude. Like, more than Scotty Scheffler's ever been in terms of how good he is to his irons and how bad he is of a putter. Doug Gim, man. Second at the Shriners Children's Open. Absolutely just, dude, flushes with his irons week in and week out. Last week at Pebble Beach, he gained 6.4 strokes on approach and gained 8.5 strokes ball striking. Lost 10.5 strokes putting, nearly 12 strokes with his short game. One of the worst putting performances I've ever seen in my entire life. And he legitimately is one of the best wedge players on the PGA Tour. Can't putt to save his life. It's like he's blindfolded.
How can you be that polar opposite?
It's crazy. I saw that last week. I'm like, 10.8 strokes putting? I don't think I've seen a number that big.
No, that's worse. That might be worse than Luke List.
Yeah,
that's saying something.
Luke List does put up those big red numbers. Nick Dunlap, 175 to 1. Bet Rivers Enhanced is real tempting as well.
I like that too.
It's a number that, again, if we came back here in 2 years and Nick Dunlap was 35 to 1, like, I don't think a lot of people would think that's crazy given the pedigree and the upside that this kid possesses. That's kind of like a please bet me type of number, I feel like. A lot of talent. Think you could do worse there.
No, that's an upside play for sure, and he's got it. I think he's going to be good here coming up real soon.
Last one I have, and it's not even a real outright bet, but my boy, Rico Hoy, is 350 to 1. I might bet him first round leader because he is an excellent driver of the golf ball on driver heavy golf courses. Does not miss big. One of the best in terms of distance from edge of fairway. Was right there in the mix at the American Express, so Desert Golf, through 36 holes before, unfortunately, the stadium course got the better of him. But 350 to 1 for Rico Hoy, who finished T3, by the way, at the Shriners Children's Open in the fall. Like maybe like a top 20 or top 40 first round leader type of bet. Like there were a lot of metrics that I looked at where randomly Rico Hoy popped. I do not trust him through 4 days in order to win a golf tournament, but we're kind of at that point in the show where like maybe Super Bowl bets parlayed with golf bets. Like I think Rico Hoy could be that guy this week.
That would be insane. You hit a Rico Hoy like first round mixed with a Super Bowl bet. I mean, that's,
Or even if it's like a top 40 or something, like it's probably going to pay.
yeah, see, that's the fun stuff too that I like. Like if the prop bets, like do some head-to-head matchups, some top 40s, man. Like that's a good call. We do like Hoy on this show, so that's,
we love Hoy.
yeah, I like it.
I got two more shouts. Mathieu Pavon 500 to 1 to win this tournament is crazy. This is a guy who finished T4 at the US Open and won a PGA Tour event last year, and I know he hasn't shown any life so far. But this is a guy who I think if he like does flirt with contention would not be scared of the moment. He's handled his own on bigger stages before. 500 to 1 for Mathieu Pavon is like a crazy number.
Isn't it crazy to you the guys that the books choose to on one hand go with recent form and on the other hand go with track record? Like track record would tell you Pavon is a great bet at that number or good bet, like just investment value wise. Like if you're betting value, like if you're just a guy who just blindly bets value, I know there's actual bettors, especially on golf, who don't look at names, they just look at value and they would just sprinkle board. Like they don't care. They never bet the top. It's just all they do. And then there's other guys, like if you're like the books are weighing track record and then like it just doesn't make sense to me how they find recent form versus track record on specific guys. Like, but it goes back to what you were saying last week about maybe just guys just aren't betting him still, and they just keep throwing it out there, like just letting it drift.
Bet me. I will.
Yeah, fine.
Last one that I have for you, Joey Ricotta. You know who's first in strokes gained putting over the last 24 rounds and happens to be 1,000 to 1?
Oh, 1,000 to 1.
1,000 to 1. And
he's first in strokes gained putting over the last 24.
I'll do you better. He's first in strokes gained putting and has a runner-up finish here in his career. First in strokes gained putting over the last 24 rounds is 1,000 to 1. And this guy finished inside the top 25 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Just kidding. He didn't finish. He finished in the top 35 2 weeks ago. He had a bad Sunday, but was legitimately in the mix at the Farmers.
I can't even think right now. Who?
The name is what's going to turn everybody off is the problem. It's Brandt Snedeker.
Oh God.
Dude, I'm not kidding. Sneds might be the best putter on the PGA Tour right now. He gained 5.6 strokes putting at Farmers, 2.6 at American Express, 4.6 at Sony, 3.6 at the RSM, 5.3 at the Sanderson, 5 at the Procore. Like, this guy gains 5 strokes putting in his sleep and has a decent track record at TPC Scottsdale. Now, listen, he has missed the cut each of the last 3 years, T55 in 2019. He hasn't finished inside the top 20 since 2015, but he does have 4 career top 10s on this golf course. And listen, we saw old man Chuck Hoffman hang in here last year. I think old man Lucas Glover can hang in here. I don't think old man, like, if I'm being real, I don't think old man Brandt Snedeker can hang here through 4 days. But I believe he was T11 going into Sunday at Torrey Pines. Like, he had gained like 7 strokes to the field through 54 holes. There is a Brandt Snedeker bet to make us money out there this week, Joey. I don't know what it is, but Brandt Snedeker can make us money.
Top 40?
Top
20?
I kind of like, maybe something like that. I trust him more early than I trust him late. Like,
all right, make the cut?
Maybe make the cut, or like, I know there's certain markets out there where you can bet on guys like T5 first round lead. I don't know if you can do like T10 or T20 in the first round, but that would be maybe something I'm interested in if Sneds tees off early. But like, Sneds is putting too well and gain strokes with his irons at Torrey Pines. Like, that's a big boy golf course. Like, I think Sneds can finish T38 here this week and win us money some way.
Yeah, he can fuck around and just find himself golfing well, especially early. Like, I like the call for early.
Dude, I looked at strokes gained putting in the model. I'm like, Sneds, holy lighten it up. I looked at his profile. I'm like, dude, this guy's like literally draining everything right now. We have to capitalize on it.
I mean, holy crap, though. The last like few times he's been here has not been.
No, it's not good. And that's why
I
we're
was
not,
just
we're
pulling
not
up
throwing
now.
big money on Sneds, trust me. But look at what he does with the putter here. Look at what he does with the putter here.
Well, well, if he's missed the cut 3 years in a row, he's motivated to make the cut this year. Like, that's probably his goal, is just let's make the cut here.
Don't embarrass yourself in front of a ton of people, Sneds.
Yeah, old man Deacon. Like, I don't know where the Deacon came from, but that was a nickname of like my neighbor years ago, and just popped in my head.
That's great.
No, man, I think make the cut. Fuck it. What's that at? That's probably at like plus 200 or something.
I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up right now. I'm definitely going to be making some interesting parlays though this week.
Plus the Saquon anytime, I think, would be fun.
Saquon anytime. Let me pull up what the old DraftKings has here. I love this tournament, man. It's awesome. I love this golf course. I love the lead in right into the Super Bowl. This is one of my favorite weekends of the entire year. Last weekend of football, obviously. I haven't been betting football a ton in the playoffs. As I told you last week, I've really been focusing on golf, but you got to get it in this week when it's the Super Bowl.
This is the time, like, even if you're going to lose money, lose it on the Super Bowl. Like, betting NFL. NFL has been wonky this year, I will say. Like, I know we've talked about that. Like, betting NFL has not been traditionally, that's one of my better sports along with golf as far as betting goes, and it was not this year. So Super Bowl also has been traditionally pretty good for me. So knock on wood, because I will have an article out at ontapsportsnet.com. Short little plug, shameless little plug here. But yeah, I was talking to Tony a little bit earlier about doing that. So that's kind of become tradition too. Putting that out this week, trying to get that out a little bit earlier than normal, which I know a lot of people have their stuff out immediately when lines release. So like I was saying, you're going to lose out on some value as far as like overs. If you're betting a ton of overs, there's still some sneaky ones maybe in there. But at this point, you're probably looking at a lot of unders and, just goofy stuff. It's the time you can get fun with it. Like, we can bet the Gatorade and we can bet the Brant Snedeker make the cut. Like, who on earth would ever do this in a normal situation? Like,
I know, just us sickos.
Sickos doing this every week and trying to find more fun than we already have, and we don't even need any more fun.
Sneds end of first round top 10 is 16-1. Top 20 for Sneds is 12-1.
Top 20 is 12-1?
Top 20 is 12. I'm trying to find 40s. I don't know if they have 40s out yet, though. Oh, yeah, they do.
That's kind of a wild number in itself, though. 12-1 for a top 20.
It's pretty solid. I'll tell you what, though. Plus 360 top 40 is probably the bet.
I think so.
What could we parlay that with in football?
Telling you, man, I kind of like. All right, do you want to do something a little bit like longer too, like kind of like what? I mean, if we're going long with Brant Snedeker, we got to do something like equally as long.
Yeah, I was thinking something in the 200 to 300 range. I was also thinking of just Chris Jones to get one sack.
That's. I mean, what's his at? I don't even know. That's not bad.
1+ is plus 124.
That's not bad.
I mean, Jalen Hurts is going to try to scramble. He throws the ball. Chris Jones plays in big moments.
I kind of, who hasn't been seen really at all lately, especially with Hollywood Brown coming back?
D-Hop, touchdown.
He's plus 500.
Yeah, let's do it.
Or plus 650 on FanDuel. Depends on where you're at. I don't know. Where did you find the
Well, DraftKings never has the best odds for anything, but they're just convenient because they have everything. Like their like layout is really convenient, and I think that's how they fuck everybody, is they're just like the most convenient app, but never have the best odds. Sned's top 40 with a D-Hop touchdown is 27-1. It's pretty good.
And
pretty good.
I was looking too at Dallas Goedert. I kind of really like Goedert in this game, just in general, because he's been getting a ton of targets. I think he actually dropped a pass that was in the end zone the last game too, or got hit like as soon as it got there. It's like, dude, you could have caught that, and they might have called interference, and that also fucked it because I think they were closer and they weren't throwing to him at that point. like D-Hop or Goddard, I feel like are scoring in this game. I don't know which one, but I mean, if you want to go, you make the pick on that one.
I like D-Hop. I think D-Hop never played in the bowl. I don't expect him to be on the field much and get a lot of yards, but I could see him getting a touchdown. I'd rather bet like him to get a touchdown as opposed to like his over on yards.
Yeah, and his over on yards is like 11.5 too, which is not crazy.
No, but he just doesn't really hit the field a ton anymore.
But I feel like they're gonna have that one like weird trick play where you're like, oh, D-Hop's not doing anything, and all of a sudden you find him, and
or
it's
just a one-on-one, and he's got grown man hands.
Little fade back of the end zone. Yeah.
But there are a ton of guys. I've like really gone deep, as you know. I'm an absolute sicko, so I've really gone deep on a lot of research this week. There are a lot of guys I like. I don't know exactly how to use them, but I have a list of different guys that I want to find ways to get on this week. Snedeker was on that list. I gotta find a way to get Sneds in. I'm really happy with his putter. Novak was on there. I think Novak could be first round leader. I think Novak could be first round leader, dude. He's been great. He can't play on Sundays. He's gonna shit down his leg here. He was here through 54 holes last year though. Finished T8. I think he played with Nick Taylor and Sahith in the final group. I'm pretty sure.
Dude, your first round leader calls lately have been money. Like going back to
Aldrich Potater.
That one takes the cake.
I know.
And it didn't even. I don't even think it actually hit.
It didn't hit, but he was close, and it was like 200 to 1.
And he was leading for a decent bit.
He was. So Novak is someone I think first round leader is interesting. Charlie Hoffman is interesting, obviously. The desert. He plays well in the desert, plays well here. He just popped at the Amex a couple of weeks ago. I feel like I should get in on Charlie Hoffman some way. And it's similar to Nick Taylor. Like, I feel like I got to have some exposure in some capacity to Nick Taylor and Charlie Hoffman because of their course history here. Sahith has finished second in the first round. He's been second after the first round in 2 of the last 3 years. Wyndham is usually a guy who, like, if he's playing well, he usually shows it early. I mentioned Rico Hoy earlier, someone who's interesting. I think JT Poston could be interesting as well. He's just been putting so bad. I don't think he could do it for 4 days, but I think he's someone who could always be interesting first round. Or I'm looking at like end of round top 5s right now, and I think there's like some interesting numbers out there. Again, I don't know exactly how I'm going to get to these guys, but I'm going to have a lot of different and unique style bets than what I normally have, and I'll make sure to put them out on X whenever I do.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what you come up with for these early bets, because Sunday is going to be tied up with a lot of money, I think, for me. So I might need to make a little bit of money before Sunday so I can squeeze in some more bets.
And they got a bunch of stuff. I mean, like, there are so many like different markets pumped out for Phoenix this week. Go ahead.
The glove versus Davis Thompson head to head.
I like that. Davey T has not been good. Let me pull up where is Davis Thompson? I could pull up his profile. I was actually looking at him not that long ago. His irons are busted. And I think he's down bad right now.
You can't do that here.
No, what I will say about Davis Thompson, he mixed at the Shriners in the fall, obviously a much weaker field, and he was in much better form at the time. Dude, he's 103rd, I think, in my model this week. Like, the model absolutely hates him. Yeah, he's so bad with his irons right now. He hasn't gained with his irons since he finished T5 at the Shriners Children's Open. He lost 6.5 strokes with his irons last week at Pebble Beach. He's only gained strokes putting once in his last 5 starts. Like, it's all off the tee. He is one of the best players in the world off the tee. He's incredible off the tee. And around the green, he's good, but his irons are so bad.
Against the glove?
I will still take Love, definitely.
Yeah, I think we have to. I don't even know what book that's on because I got that from Action. So hopefully that's still actually at a book at this point. Because I saw it on like they have the matchup lineups here, and I don't know if they update them if things change. Let me see if I can find it on DraftKings. They do have the 18-hole matchups too, which is really interesting, I think.
That is cool. I definitely want to do a make the cut parlay this week, but I can't find make the cuts right now.
They're getting a little bit more challenging to find too, and I'm also seeing that like I kind of like certain books for it. Like I think it's Fanatics Is it Fanatics?
Fanatics is great.
Fanatics will have like more of the guys available for the make the cuts.
Okay.
When you have like a DraftKings or FanDuel, I think some of these other ones they only list the guys that are like you probably have a really good idea that they're going to make the cut. They're like minus 200, or like minus 300, and it's like that's not fun. I want somebody who's like minus 110 or plus 140, like a Brant Snedeker or whatever he would be at. I don't know,
Yeah.
but like those are a little bit more fun to actually. There's a really good matchup here that I am not betting on, but tournament matchup you got Mav McNeely and Nick Taylor. I think that's just a fun matchup they put together.
That is a fire matchup.
Yeah, this is minus 110 on DraftKings. Lucas Glover and Davis Thompson. We're getting kind of in the weeds here, but like this is the week to do it, right?
It is definitely. Yeah, I'm looking at make the cut stuff over at Fanatic. There's like not really good numbers on these guys.
There's not this week. Damn.
No. Like Webb Simpson's minus 125 to make the cut. Like
Webb, come on.
Or like just like those level of players. What I'm saying, like Matt McCarty minus 140 to make the cut. Like you're not really getting anything enticing over there. So maybe I won't make the cut parlay. I will have more unique content out though, and like I said, I'll definitely be posting all of that stuff on X. It's a fun weekend. The People's Open, Super Bowl weekend. We're going to have our fingertips all in the market in lots of different ways. But, Joey, we are at an hour 40 minutes. I think we've talked enough about golf here on this episode. And like we said, we'll be sharing some of our other bets and tidbits that will be cooking up along the way here throughout the tournament and into the weekend on social media. So don't worry, we got some good stuff still coming, but yeah, man, I think we covered just about everything there is to cover on the Waste Management Phoenix Open for today's episode. Appreciate you hanging in there with me for an hour and a half, my friend.
Hey, man, I didn't expect anything less. I didn't expect an hour 40, but that's what we do. This is the week to do it, like we were saying. So this has been a blast, and hopefully we can get another outright here. I think what better week than to do it at the Waste Management? I have not had, like, admittedly, that much success here. So hoping to turn that around, and yeah. Knock on wood, we get a Super Bowl like little combination. Some of our parlay bets hit, so we'll be pretty happy next Tuesday, Wednesday when we hop back on here.
Absolutely, my friend. Yeah, I haven't had the best success here either. I haven't ever hit an outright, usually because I don't bet Scotty Scheffler all that often. I did have Sahith last year, and he was in the final group. Just didn't have his best stuff on Sunday, and I am going to bet Sahith at this golf tournament until he wins this bad boy. It feels like he's going to eventually, but we'll definitely be posting all of our bets, final bets. We still got some things to decide upon on X whenever we come to that point. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and stuck with us. Go ahead, Joey. Go ahead,
real
buddy.
Quick. Sorry,
Go ahead, buddy. We're already into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
Anyone that's still with us is a sicko just like us.
Dude, Luka Doncic.
Oh my God! Do we really have to fucking do this right now?
We don't.
This is what you bring up an hour 40 minutes, and you're a sick man. You're a sick man. An hour 40 minutes into a podcast. Hey, Jack, what do you think about Luka being traded?
Just crazy. All right, let's talk about it.
Gonna go on for another 3 weeks. Absolutely crazy. I'll talk to you off air. To everyone who tuned in, thank you very much. Make sure to go and check out ontapsportsnet.com. I had my preview of the Waste Management Phoenix Open drop. It actually got a lot of steam this week, which got me very excited. And the articles have been regularly pumping out some good numbers. So definitely check that out if you want to get some more thoughts on TPC Scottsdale and kind of some of the stats and what I'm looking for this week. Drop my final bets article out as well. Joey mentioned he's going to be having an article come out over the weekend before the Super Bowl for some fun other stuff. So make sure to check out On Tap Sports. Now we got you covered for all the Chicago sports needs. We obviously got golf stuff, beer reviews, movies, lots of good stuff over there. Subscribe to On Tap Sportsnet on YouTube as well. Really trying to grow the numbers over there on that channel, and follow Golf on Tap for free wherever you may listen to your podcast. Until next time, everyone, best of luck this week at the People's Open. Hopefully we provided you with some good insight and can help you hit an outright. That's the goal, Joey. Hopefully we'll come back on here this time next week and be talking about a lovely ticket. Until then, everyone, have a great rest of your night. Crack 'em, lock 'em. Joey, your time.
Definitely.